Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I got to see the room where he worked. When I went to Israel about 25 years ago, I remember being in the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, and of course, our main focus was on seeing the traditional spot where Jesus was born. Nevertheless, they also showed us a small room off to the side that happened to be where the scholar Jerome worked. I suspect that for most people that wouldn't mean much, but to the group of preachers I was with, we noted the significance. This week we have been looking at men and women of faith the church commemorates and remembers during September, and Jerome is one of those. However, in order to understand the significance of what Jerome did, we need to start with events well before his life. In the very early days of the church, most of the world spoke Greek, and Hebrew was hardly known outside of Israel. So in order to get a Greek copy of the Bible, legend says that 70 Hebrew scholars were placed on an island for 70 days, and they came out with 70 identical translations of the Bible in Greek. At least that's the tradition. Incidentally, this resulting work was called the Septuagint. The problem was that not long after that, with the Roman Empire ruling the world, the common language became Latin. So anyone who wanted to translate the Bible into Latin used the Septuagint as the basis of their work. Jerome, however, didn't base his translation on a translation, but rather went back to the original Hebrew and created a Latin Bible from the original. His version was much more reliable. It was called the Vulgate, and that's the work he did in that little room I saw in Bethlehem. Jerome was born around 345, and as a young person led a fairly promiscuous life, although he often felt guilt about his conquests. At first he was afraid of Christianity, but when he converted, he went all the way, dedicating himself to studying Hebrew, Greek, and Latin under some of the greatest scholars of the day. Beyond his translations, Jerome was known for his teachings on the Christian moral life, especially in cosmopolitan centers such as Rome. He often focused on women's lives and identified how a woman devoted to Jesus should live her life. This grew out of his relationship with several important women leaders in the early church. One of those women, a wealthy Roman aristocrat, funded Jerome's journey to Bethlehem to work on his translation, and he began that work in 382. A little bit more about Bible translation than you probably wanted to know. Hebrew not only has no punctuation, but has only the consonants. No vowels are written down. So words are recognized by their roots, but the vowels and how the words were pronounced had been mostly lost. Jerome's work helped in large ways to standardize and clear up some of the pronunciations that are still used today. In addition, Jerome also wrote many commentaries on the Bible, often explaining his translation choices as he explained the meaning of the text. He also wrote history, many letters, theological books, and even gave us what many believe is the first description of vitamin A deficiency, including the symptoms and the cure. Jerome is often depicted in art, and even seems to have influenced the theology of Augustine. Sometimes big things come from small places. It was just a small room. What came from there continues to reverberate in our time. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.